Today I'm going to talk about a event, an organization. I don't know what to call it exactly, but it's called Moms on the Farm, and it's a tour for moms. And I really kind of wished I was going right after Dr. Newman, because his end slide led perfectly into what I'm going to talk about. So everybody in this room has seen that 2% versus the 98%. 2% of our population is involved in production agriculture. And I kind of think, well, where do I fall into that? Because I'm not really involved in production agriculture. That's not how I make my living. But I understand production agriculture. I teach about it. I was raised on a kind of a hobby sheep farm. I was in FFA. I've been to several farms. And I think, how many other people like me who really aren't in production agriculture, but they know about it? Well, there's not many of us either. 78% of people in the U.S. say they know little or nothing about agriculture. That's over 3/4 of people say they don't know anything. And Dr. Newman said that his students are 3 generations removed from the farm. And we don't have as big of a farming background here at Arkansas, and I would guess that our students are even more removed from the farm. And then when you start talking about people walking up and down the grocery store aisle, how removed from the farm they are. So you've got people walking up and down the grocery store aisle. Most of those food purchases are made by women. Most of the time it is the moms of the world that purchase the food. We were just talking last night, it is my dad that cooks, but that's not how it works in lots of houses. So it's mostly women that are making those decisions, and they've got all of these questions. They've seen those Mercy for Animals videos. If they haven't watched them, they have a friend that's watched them and told them about them. They've seen those lovely little pictures that you see on Facebook all the time that are the little one-word pictures about how awful their food supply is for you. They have a buddy at church that tells you about how terrible all of this, all these factory farms are and how awful our food supply is, and we should all have gardens and we should all eat nothing but organic, and that's how life should be. And so they don't know what to do. They get to this meat case, and that's actually in Whole Foods because it was a really pretty picture, but they get to this meat case and they don't know what to do, and so they're looking for information. And I love that slide that Dr. Newman said that 56% of them don't know where to go to get information about how animals are raised and how animals are to raise animals humanely. But 92% of people, they trust word-of-mouth recommendations. They trust what they hear from their family and friends and from other people more than any other kind of recommendation. I can write all the blogs I want to. Dr. Grandin and the folks at AMI can put out all kinds of great videos, but they're not going to trust that as much as they're going to trust something that they hear from somebody they're standing next to. Because when you look somebody in the eye and they tell you, this is how we do things and we do them with integrity, they're going to be a lot more likely to believe you than, seeing some meme on Facebook. So with all of that information, there were some other groups at South Dakota, and there's a group at Illinois, and I think there's some groups in Texas that have started doing what they call mom farm tours. It was by no means my original idea. They started focusing on moms and taking them to farms and letting them see firsthand what we do on farms, and bringing the moms out there and letting them talk to the farmers and talk to the people in production agriculture. Something that they did at South Dakota State that I tried to mimic here is they bring in the scientists in agriculture, the female scientists like myself and Dr. Thaxton and Dr. Beth Kegley, who have been educated in animal handling, animal nutrition, meat science, so that not only are they women, not only are they also moms, but they have an education and a background to be on that bus and to visit with those non-ag moms, I kind of call them soccer moms, about production agriculture. And so that's what I was going to talk to you guys about today, is what we're doing here at the University of Arkansas and how we have adapted it for our group. Our group of ladies include myself, a meat scientist. We have a meat scientist over here in poultry science. We have Dr. Thaxton, that's an animal well-being expert. We have ag communicators, an ag economist. We've got beef and poultry nutritionists. And then beyond that, we have folks in extension that we work with that are in our honor committee. We also have ladies from the Arkansas Cattle Women's Association. We have ladies from Arkansas Farm Bureau Women's Group. And we all work together and tried to come up, how are we going to do these mom farm tours and make them good for Arkansas and, make them our own. And so this is how our farm tours work. We've done 4 of them. We've got another one scheduled for October 13th. Most moms are going to have some kind of connection to dairy. They give their kids milk, they give their kids cheese. Everybody understands dairy. Now, in Northwest Arkansas, we are not a big dairy production area, but we do have a couple of dairies. Susan England is here in the room somewhere. I don't know where she went. She may be hiding. There she is. We have been to her farm twice, and then we've been to a farm here in Washington County twice. So I always like to include the dairy farm on our tour, even though we're not really a dairy production area, because it's something that the moms can really understand. It really hits home for them. And it's also one of those production practices that kind of gets a bad rap. You see lots of bad stuff about dairy in social media, and we've got dairies that we can take them to, even though it's not a huge area for dairy. So we take the ladies. Both of our farms are good about saving cows so that they're milking cows when we get there, and we don't have to show up at like 6 a.m. They're both really good about having cows there for us to milk. Sometimes the tourists will actually get to milk the cows by hand themselves. They think that's really cool. They bring them in, they show them the whole process from the cows walking in the milking parlor. The tourists get to get right down in the milking parlor, right in the way of the farmers. And they watch them clean the udders and all of the process that goes through all the way until the cows walk out. And they're talking to them the whole time. And once I get to these farms, we have all these scientists and researchers and ag communicators. Once I get to their farms, I try to be real quiet and let the farmers do the talking. And both of the farmers that we've been working with in the dairy production have been great about, they'll tell you exactly what they're doing and why. Susan does a great job, and she's not afraid to answer any questions. There's no questions that are off limits. She takes them into the milk room. They talk about the tank room. They talk about the milk and how it's cooled and where it goes and when the milk truck comes. And she talks to them about antibiotics without them even asking. She can talk to them about hormones. And then any questions, she'll take them over to where the cows are fed, talk about how the cows are fed, and then turned out, takes them to her maternity pen where the cows calve. And then, of course, the most popular part of the dairy farm is when we all go over to the baby calves and they lick on you and you get to pet on the baby calves. And she talks about all the care that goes into raising those baby calves because that's where her milk cows come from. So the dairy farm is usually everyone's favorite. Sorry, beef guys. Everybody loves the dairy farm because they actually get to pet on the little dairy calves. Now, in Northwest Arkansas, we have a lot of beef production. We have got a lot of hay. You're not going to raise a lot of corn and soybeans on these hills. So we have a lot of beef production. And so we also try to take them to a beef farm. In our 4 tours, we've been to 4 different beef farms. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about the segments of the beef industry, because one of the questions one of the ladies asked our first farmer was, well, do you sell your cows to Walmart? And it didn't even dawn on me, she doesn't understand that this lady doesn't sell cows that are ready. Her end product isn't even ready to go to harvest. She was selling calves and sending them to a stocker unit or to a sale barn or to a feedlot. And these consumers don't even understand that. They don't understand the segments of the beef industry. So we talked to them about that. And some of the farms we've gotten to see, we've seen some purebred beef farms where we talk about the genetics. The beef farm we went to last time was actually an embryo transfer facility and we got to talk about the neat technology of embryo transfer in beef cattle. Mostly we try to get cow-calf producers, so that, that's what everybody understands. That's mostly what we do here in Northwest Arkansas. Of course, in Northwest Arkansas, we're not going to get to see a feedlot. There's not any around. If we were doing this in Lubbock, Texas, we'd probably get to see feedlots. But we try to see what is in our area, and we try to see commercial agriculture. So the beef farms are real popular. One of the problems about the beef farms is that, on a given weekday in October, a lot of times beef farmers aren't doing much with their cows. They might be, if we're lucky, they might be working cows. So there's not a whole lot going on as far as day-to-day practices. These folks, the proctors, they actually took us on a hayride out in the field, and that was so much fun. That was great. The day we went to the embryo transfer place, it was raining, and we ended up just taking the bus out in the field, and the farmer talked to us on the bus. Sometimes they'll just pin the cattle up where you can see them there close. Beef cows are not like dairy cows. They're not going to let you walk up and pet them unless they're my daughter's beef cows. But for the most part, that's something you see at a distance, and so you have to think about that, and you want to have a good dynamic farmer that's going to talk to them about their day-to-day life. And these proctors, they did a great job of talking about how hard it is to be a beef farmer, and how, we talked to them about the drought and the cost and the expense. And one of the ladies looked at him and said, well, why do you do it? Why don't you go get a job in town? And he looked at her and said, because I love it. And that doesn't dawn on them as consumers that farming is not just about a job. It's about a lifestyle. And once you get that across to them, you can just see the light in their heads. So after we go to the beef farm, we also go, because we're in Northwest Arkansas, we go to Janeal can't run the thing. Here we go. We go to a poultry farm. Now, biosecurity issues, we dress them all up in these awesome blue suits. It really turns into a big comedic experience for them to put the suits on. One of the farm tours we did, I was like 8 months pregnant, so Janeal getting out of the biosuit was a comedic experience. We take them right in the houses and let them stand among the birds, and let those farmers talk about walking the birds every day. They talk about the climate control of the house. They talk about the lighting systems of the house. Sometimes they'll even turn the lights on and show how the birds get more active. It's really eye-opening for the ladies. It's just great. They don't mind putting on the biosuits. Most of the time, you just send them an email and tell them, please don't be around any chicken for 3 days, or whatever the security system is for that farm. And that's no problem. Most of them are like, well, can I eat chicken? And, oh, yes, you can eat chicken. But if you have any backyard chickens, oh, no, we don't have any chicken. Most of them, that's not even an issue. They're not around birds. So the chicken farm is great. Sometimes they'll even get to handle the little chickens. They see them being fed. They see they're being watered. They understand that, yes, it's enclosed. You put them in those biosuits, and the reality of biosecurity really hits home for them, because this is an issue for the industry, but until they put those suits on, it's just words. And then they all stand around and pose for pictures in their awesome biosuits, which I think is always really funny. So something that we added to our tours that some of the other tours are not doing is we have a couple of great ladies from the Arkansas Cattle Women that do cooking demos. And they would do a beef demo. They also do a chicken demo. Don't tell any of the beef people that the Cattle Women do a chicken demo. But they'll do a beef demo, they'll do a chicken demo, and usually they'll do a third demo that's usually a ground beef. So it's usually 2 beef and a chicken. They try to use a cheese or a milk product, so we get the dairy in there too. All of her demos, she'll do 3 demos in the span of about an hour, so she's cooking 3 separate dishes in about an hour. So they're quick, they're easy. Wendy Petts is the lady that she used to be the president of the American National Cattle Women, and she should be on the Food Network, because she can just stand up there and talk to you and cook, and if I was doing it, I would burn myself and spill everything. But Wendy is wonderful, and she can talk about beef and talk about food safety, and she does all of these demos with a skillet, an electric skillet, because setting those up, you know, at an oven, she'd have to have her back to her. So she sets them up at a really neat electric skillet. Putting the ladies in this classroom situation where they're kind of a captive audience is a great opportunity for question and answer time. And that's when we really get a chance to talk, for them to ask those hard questions about antibiotics and hormones and grading and things that they may not understand. One of the ladies I forgot to mention that's in our group is a labeling expert from Tyson. She can talk to them about what labels mean. That's a great time to ask questions, and they usually were kicking them out the door because the questions just go on and on and on. We also include a little folder full of information about our industries that we're talking about. So I have a little two-sided cardstock paper that has some cattle terms and some poultry terms, because we don't realize it, but in farming we have a little bit different language than the general public. It always kind of blows my mind when people don't understand what I'm talking about. Of course, I also blow other people's mind when I use the word carcass in, you know, casual conversation. But so we try to define some of these words, and we start out saying, well, beef cattle and dairy cattle are the same species, but they've been selected over the generations for really different purposes. But we use a lot of the same terms. So we talk about what cattle and cow and heifer and bull and steer and all of those things mean. We talk in this little, I kind of give it to them at the beginning of the tour and tell them it's kind of a cheat sheet so they can understand what we're talking about. I had to have the poultry folks help me put together one for the poultry farm so that they can talk about a broiler and a tom and a chick and a poult. And then at the bottom of this, which I ran out of room on my slide, there's some demographic information about where Arkansas is in terms of beef production, dairy production, and poultry production. Something else that I added was everybody wears a name tag, of course, because you can't have any kind of any meeting without name tags. But what I added to our name tags was all of the ladies that are part of our committee, they wear a name tag that says, you know, I'm Beth, and I grew up on a beef and dairy farm in Virginia. Mine says, I'm Janeal, and I grew up on a sheep farm in Texas. So, you can kind of find out a little bit about somebody without actually interviewing them. And they're like, oh, you're from Virginia. My grandmother's from Virginia. And again, it's just about establishing those relationships with the ladies. So we have an ag economist in our committee, and she puts together surveys. We give the ladies a survey before they get on the bus about what they know about these farming production before we even start. And then we give them a similar survey about what they've learned. And in that survey, we have some open-ended questions about things that the tourists have learned. And I've tried to put in a few of these. So they learn the farmers' personal stories. They like those personal stories. The first farm tour we did, the beef farmer was a widow, and she had an amazing personal story. And that really resonated with the ladies because she chose to stay on the farm after her husband died because she wanted that lifestyle for her kids. And that just blew their minds. The farmer's struggle and intensive work. I can remember one of the first tours we did, one of the ladies, as we were leaving the dairy farm, she said, well, if they milk cows 7 days a week, when do they go on vacation? And Dr. Apple was driving the van, and he's just smiling. He said, they don't go on vacation. Never. No, ma'am. They don't. Unless they find someone to run that farm, they don't go on vacation. You could see her mind just blowing. Well, what happens if the electricity goes off? You figure out how to milk the cows. And they don't understand the real struggle until they're standing there with their shoes in the dirt. I liked this quote from one of the ladies. It was wonderful to learn that we have local farmers committed to their way of life. It's not about a job for farmers, it's about a way of life. Looking out for us, producing safe and healthy products. I think we got the point across to this lady. That we're not factory farms. And none of these are organic or natural or niche farmers. These are commercial, commodity farms that we go to. And they understand that they're looking out for us, producing safe and healthy products. This was another one. Tell us about your experience. The farms were interesting. The farmers were knowledgeable, and I loved hearing about their stories. The farmers were knowledgeable. You know, I don't know if she just thought that they were going around throwing out feed and hoping everything was okay. Such a great opportunity to learn about where our food comes from. Here's Susan telling the group in the milk barn. Here's some of our fun having tourists at one of our poultry farms. Coming here, it makes me feel that there's people who care about what they're doing and try to do the right thing. I don't think they're going to consider these factory farms anymore. Miss Hart, she's our other dairy farmer. When we were done with her tour, she comes out with a basket full of cheese for everybody, you know, and she does, and she did this completely, didn't tell me, you know, she just shows up with all this cheese, and I was like, you are awesome. Susan, when we came to her farm, she had some really neat little shaker things for the ladies to make smoothies with. A great way to get out and see where our food comes from, this part blows my mind. I had no idea there were farms so close to us. This woman lives in Northwest Arkansas. I had no idea there were farms so close to, I don't know where she thinks food is produced. And I do not say this to make fun of these ladies, but people don't think about their food production on this level on a day-to-day basis. When they go to the grocery store, they're looking for price and they're thinking about how it tasted last time until they see something negative. So what I'm trying to do is to turn that on its head, to turn it where when they see something negative, or that crazy lady at the soccer game is telling them all about how awful milk production is and how terrible the cows are treated, that lady can say, you know, I went on a tour of a dairy farm and those cows were treated great. You know, we were petting on them. They spent 8 minutes of their day, twice a day, in the milk parlor. The rest of the time they're eating and laying around. I wish I was a dairy cow. Again, you know, we have the closed door policy a lot of times with the chicken farms, and I know a lot of folks see those chicken farms and they got no idea what's going on inside. I had one lady after one of the tours, she put down in her survey that she had seen the trucks driving down the highway like we saw with all the turkeys stacked up on top of each other. She'd seen the chickens in that condition driving to work in Springdale. She thought that's how chickens lived all the time. And apparently she still ate chicken. But, you know, it was mind-boggling for her to realize, oh, they run around in this big, huge house. They've got all this room and all the food that they want. Because I'm a blogger and I kind of live in this weird blogging world, I try to concentrate on local food bloggers and invite local food bloggers to come, because you're going to increase your influence, and I'm hoping to increase the number of ladies that want to come on our tour by inviting these bloggers and bringing them along. And here's a couple of the blogs that have been written by bloggers after they've been on the tour. And Sarah is new to the area. Her husband was a farmer. He grew up in farming, but she's a city kid. She wanted to go just to kind of give herself a leg up on her husband when he tells her she doesn't know anything about farming. And this again, you don't realize how we do speak a different language. She said, for example, heifer. She didn't understand that words she thought were synonyms have distinct, separate definitions. that heifer means this and cow means that. It never would have dawned on me that people didn't understand the difference between those two things. And then this lady went on our first tour, and she said it was wonderful to see local farmers committed to their way of life, producing safe and healthy products. That may have been the same lady who gave us the quote earlier. We usually have some media along, which I think is great, and we've gotten some really, really good stories in the media about our tours and the opportunities we're given to ladies. Of course, none of this is possible without sponsors. The Arkansas Beef Council largely sponsors us. The Arkansas Cattlewomen are largely involved. Obviously, the Division of Agriculture, and then several other groups have given us money, things to go on our swag bags, coupons for their products, and financial support. So those are our sponsors. I don't know where I am on time. I love questions. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. You took them off to a big chicken farm, which obviously some people would call a factory farm, and then you took them to a small beef operation, which most people would call a family farm, not a factory farm. How did they, after visiting both those types of operations, were they responding just as positively to the big chicken farm as they were to the small family dairy or beef farm?
Well, it depends on the chicken farm we visited. We've been to 3 different farms, and I think we did a better job when the chicken farm we visited was the family gave us the tour. You know, chicken farming is a little bit confusing. There was one of the times we did the tours where the folks from Tyson, that they had the contract with the farmer, they came in and did the tours, and which was great because we had all these fieldmen from Tyson there to talk about their industry, but they never saw the owner of the farm. And I think that we're best off if it's a family farm. Yes, ma'am. But usually the other 2 times when we had the family farmers standing there, you know, their house is over on the other side of the field, their kids are running around, they understand, you know, I walk these chickens twice a day. I'm either me or my workers have to go through and pick up the deads. But for the most part, they've had an all positive reaction from the chickens. Yes, ma'am. That's a good question, and that has been our biggest challenge. We put our event on several community calendars. We struggled with finances to do a lot of advertising, but we do a lot of community calendars. We've tried to get into some radio spots, you know, but that's an expensive endeavor. I actually did some Facebook advertising, and that works really well. We've done some email advertising on some of our university listservs. That works really well. I think the biggest driver is word of mouth. Ladies that have been on it before that tell their friend or their coworker, hey, I went on this, it was a great experience. Yes, those great biohazard suits. And they love those. They think they're great. And that's one of the things about it. For the most part, there was one of the chicken farms wouldn't let us take pictures in the houses. But for the most part, they will let any of the ladies take any of pictures that they want to take. And you know, it's all about transparency. Somebody else, go ahead.
There's no such thing as a farm that's owned by a factory, is there? I mean, aren't they essentially all owned by private individuals?
98% of our farms in the U.S. are family-owned farms. Now, some of those they've put together a family corporation to own that farm. So there's, what does that mean? 2% of farms are owned by some entity other than families.
There are a few companies that have farms that are used for research purposes or for other things. So there are some that are owned.
But, you know, people see those chicken houses driving down the side of the road and they think factory farm.
They got a Tyson or George's sign in front of them.
Right, that's true too. They hear 5,500 sows in a house and they think factory farm. Yes, ma'am.
Have you looked at all at whether or not the
are interested in, like these farms, they don't necessarily sell locally, although they're local farmers, and people like that local connection. Do they, I don't even know how you would look at that, but have you looked at all at whether or not when they go into Walmart and buy, for example, this Sargento cheese, they're saying, hey, this could have come from that lady I met 2 weeks ago?
I haven't looked at that. No, that would be a good thing to ask in some of our pre-surveys, though.
I don't know how you would do it.
Yeah, I wish Jenny was here. She's our ag economist.
Janelle,
Yes,
repeat. I don't think people could hear her in the back.
She was asking if there's any way that we could assess whether or not the ladies that attend our tour are interested in purchasing local products. And we haven't figured out a way to assess that, but it's a good thing to assess. I would like to go out and focus some of our advertising in some of the farmers markets and try to get some of those folks. There's going to be a percentage of people that see what we're doing, who we're sponsored by, and they're going to say, nah, I don't want to do that. But I think for the most part, it's been positive. Yes, ma'am. That's a good question. We have set a minimum age of 14. We don't want it to be kids on the farm. And that's a little bit of a confusing thing with our title. I don't really know how to fix it. But yes, we do. Most of them have been homeschool groups that they bring their teenage kids. And that's always been a positive thing. We've had a few repeats, but I don't think anybody's repeated more than once. I have had some dads. I've had a grandpa on the farm. Yeah, we don't discriminate based on sexual gender.
So next up is dads on the farm, and then grandpas or grandparents. Let's just do grandparents
on the farm. Yeah. Usually the group is usually mostly women. Trying to think if this tour had a man. I don't think he must have ran away if he was in this picture. Most of the time we have one or two men, but not very many. It's just one day. We start about 8:30. We try to have them done about 3 so they can drop kids off and pick kids up. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a cost related to the mom?
The moms that come do not have a cost.
So it's all.
It's a free.
It's all by sponsors.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's a question.
I didn't. Yes, sir.
We do a cherry day on the farm right through October in our county. And all the advertising was done on Facebook, and we didn't expect any to do it. The first year, I remember we were parking on a small pasture, 630 people came in the first hour. We had dads with pets, sample of cheese, take home with them, stuff from them. A lot of them are grandparents, bring their grandkids, and they see what life on the farm was.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if you previous experience by showing them the AMI video, or do you get questions about what's happening?
Well, I've really thought about doing a Moms on the Farm 2.0, where we take them maybe to the Discovery Center. There's an Allen's Canning. I don't think that we really need to get them into a slaughter facility. That would be too hard to do. But there's some further processing plants. I haven't gotten that far, other than just it being an idea. But there's a lot of food production in this area, and I think that would be, and then that might be a good opportunity to show them these videos, too.
We've been getting about on the cattle one about 90% likes on that. I think the chicken one, the turkey one's got about 75 to 80% likes, and it shows stunning.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
One more.
That has been a real challenge. We try not to have them on the bus for more than 30 minutes at a time. We made that mistake with the first tour. We went too far. They don't like to eat on the bus. That was a mistake we made. So we try to keep it where they're only going to be on the bus for about 30 minutes. And to get to 3 farms and then come back and have lunch and do the demos and be done by 3 o'clock, you can't go very far. Because, we don't have pigs. Well, there's not a commercial pig production facility within driving distance. We could, you know, I don't want to go to the university farms because those aren't family farms. No offense to any university farmers that are in here.
Oh, I'm sure that Janeal can't do
Oh,
this.
I've got contact information.
But I can. If anybody has any giveaways that they'd be able to donate, they give all these women bags, things to take back. I'm sure she'd be happy to have them. Plus, money's always welcome. Those buses aren't inexpensive.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you know somebody that might like to come, tell them about it. So, you see why I wanted her to talk? I think it's a great program. She's done a great job of getting it going here. So, thank you, Janeal.